Kore Mwapenduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. I am Glenora Shipura. Let's take a look at what you can expect in today's broadcast. Get married for love, not citizenship. Marrying a foreign national for money is a crime, says Nzuza from South Africa. U.S. to give $414 million in humanitarian aid for Congo, and Mozambique's defense ministry officials accused of embezzlement. We'll also be talking to Talent Gore, who will be filling us in on the latest news in Zimbabwe. We'll be right back with your top stories.
Neopaints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neopaints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neopaints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
Getting into your top stories, the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Nzuza, says South Africans should not marry foreign nationals for financial benefits. Nzuza was speaking to reporters at the end of the African National Congress National Executive Committee meeting on Tuesday. He described these types of marriages as fraud against the state and warned South Africans that they too would be arrested if caught. Not marrying for romantic reasons or love is a crime. You are committing a crime against the state, he said. According to Nzuza, the government investigates couples that seek to be married to make sure that they are really in love before approving the marriage. The government spends money sending investigators to come and check that you are romantically involved. We ask you questions, how long you have been staying with this person, and so on and so on. So we conclude, he said. He said the high number of fraudulent marriages between South Africans and foreign nationals made it tough for South Africans who want to marry foreign nationals for love to have their marriages speedily finalized. Getting into our next story, the U.S. said on Wednesday it would provide nearly $414 million in humanitarian assistance for the Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 25 million people need such aid, nearly a quarter of the country's population. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture, Jeffrey Prescott, told Reuters a significant amount of that money would go to the United Nations agencies and aid groups providing urgent food assistance, healthcare and nutrition support, shelter, water, sanitation, and hygiene. This funding also includes direct support of agricultural commodities from American farmers, said Prescott, who will formally announce the aid in Kinshasa on Wednesday with U.S. Ambassador to the DRC, Lucy Tamlin. Getting into our next story, Mozambique's Central Office for the Fight Against Corruption announced that it has begun criminal proceedings against 3 senior officials from the Defense Ministry accused of embezzling about $819,000. According to the GCCC spokesperson Romualdo Jonam, speaking to reporters at an event regarding the presentation of the activities carried out by the GCCC during the first semester of the current year. The 3 officials made transfers of money to various companies supposedly contracted for public works. They also transferred money supposedly to acquire goods and services for the state without issuing tenders or signing contracts under the pretext of contingency and military urgency. The case is currently underway with a total of 5 defendants. The group is accused of embezzlement, tax fraud, illicit enrichment, and money laundering, which are currently being investigated. The group also made large cash payments for the purchase of goods for their benefit, showing outward signs of wealth that are not in line with their lawful income, Jonam said. A potential presidential candidate in Tunisia has been sentenced to 2 years in prison, marking another setback to the country's fledgling opposition challenging President Kais Saied as he seeks a new term Abir Mausi, a 49-year-old lawyer and the head of the right-wing Free Distorian Party, was arrested in October after criticizing the electoral process and presidential decrees guiding it, alleging a lack of transparency. Following a complaint by the North African nation's election authority, she was found guilty of violating a controversial anti-fake news decree outlawing spreading information that slanders or harms others. The law has been widely used to prosecute those who criticize authorities. Mausi's lawyer, Nafa Laribi, told the Associated Press that she still intends to run in the October 6th presidential election and that, unlike other candidates, nothing in Monday's sentence prevents her from running. Getting to the last of our top stories, Niger has cut diplomatic ties with Ukraine, a move which signals a burgeoning rift between some West African states and Kyiv. Niger's military government said it made the move in solidarity with neighboring Mali, who severed their relations with Ukraine 2 days ago. Now, both countries cited comments by a Ukrainian military official who suggested Kyiv played a role in the killing of dozens of Malian soldiers last month. Now, Ukraine has been trying to win allies in Africa throughout its war with Russia, likely in an attempt to counter Moscow's growing influence on the continent. At the end of July, scores of Malian soldiers, along with mercenaries from Russia's Wagner Group, were killed in clashes with separatist rebels and al-Qaeda-linked militants. Mali's military regime had turned to the notorious Wagner Group in 2021, seeking support in tackling its crippling insecurity issues. After Wagner confirmed losses in July's attack, Andrei Yusov, a spokesman for Ukrainian military intelligence, said the rebels received the necessary information they needed to conduct their attacks. That concludes our top stories. After the break, we talk to Talent Gore, and she'll fill us in on the state of affairs in Zimbabwe.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
We now cross over to Zimbabwe, talking to our correspondent, Talent Gore, who's giving us the state of affairs there. Good morning, Talent.
Good morning, Glenora, and Africa. Good morning.
Now, Talent, getting right into it. Your first story is rather peculiar. Police have arrested two foreign tourists, one for having a sex toy in his bag, and the other for recording a video in which he said that Zimbabwe has no water and electricity. What's exactly going on there?
Yes, two foreign nationals were last week and they appeared before the courts the day before yesterday, and the magistrates dismissed their bail application, stating that they would abscond court. Apparently, the magistrate said dismissed their bail application who are for the two foreign nationals or two tourists who are charged for publishing falsehoods and for possessing a sex toy. The magistrate said that there was overwhelming evidence that Lucas Slavic from Czech Republic and Tom Sekanwa from Uganda committed the offense they are charged with. The magistrate also said if they were released from a remand prison, the two were likely on court because of the country's porous borders. The state also feared that the two may interfere with state witnesses who are workers at Backpackers Lodge. Apparently, the Ugandan was arrested for having a sex toy, and the Czech Republic tourist was arrested for recording a video and stating that there was no water and electricity in Zimbabwe, of which this is not something new. We all know that there's a blackout challenge, or rather there's a water challenge and electricity challenges in Zimbabwe, but that foreign national was arrested because he recorded the video and it started circulating on social media. Apparently the courts are saying that he was trying to incite the public with his video. So he's facing up to 20 years in prison. So right now he's still in, he was remanded in prison though, and they'll be back on 20 August for their bail application. Right now we're just waiting to hear what the courts are going to say in regards to these cases.
All right, thank you. Do keep us posted on that story. Rather peculiar story indeed. Now, getting into your next story, President Emmerson Mnangagwa reappoints Higher and Tertiary Education Deputy Minister Simalisiswe Sibanda after having sacked him just a month ago.
Yes, President Emmerson Mnangagwa has reappointed the Higher and Tertiary Education Deputy Minister Sibanda after having sacked him a month ago. Apparently, there was a video which circulated last month on social media in which a non-Ndebele speaking teacher was teaching the early childhood development class at a Matabeleland school in Matabeleland. So apparently a video circulated on social media in which the deputy minister was scolding the teacher who was in Ndebele speaking, who was a Shona. So apparently people were saying that was tribalism, and the video went viral and the president was forced to fire him. Apparently just 2 days ago he was rehired again, and the president pardoned him and said that he was fit to come back to duty. And the deputy minister said that, or rather he apologized for that, saying that he didn't know the consequences that that his video, or rather that his ways had gotten him into. So the president pardoned him after he apologized, and now he was rehired again as the deputy minister of higher education. So right now he's now the deputy minister again of that same ministry. Unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, if you're a Shona speaking, you're not allowed, or rather, you cannot go to a Ndebele speaking area to teach the early childhood development, because they require someone who speak their native language. But apparently that particular teacher was able to speak in Ndebele and Shona again. She would speak in both the languages, so she had an advantage. But the deputy minister said that she was not allowed to teach in that area because she was a Shona and not a Ndebele native.
All right. Thank you so much, Talent, for bringing us these stories from the House of Stone.
You're welcome, and thank you very much.
Let's now take a look at our weather predictions before we return with economic news.
eTicket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nhh.com.na.
Getting into the economic news, Egypt is capitalizing on the current dip in wheat prices to purchase nearly a third of its annual wheat requirement in a single transaction. The General Authority for Supply Commodities, the country's state-run buyer, announced plans to buy up to 3.8 million tons of wheat in a tender next week, Bloomberg reported. At some point last year, Egypt, one of the world's biggest importers of wheat, began shifting towards direct purchases instead of tenders after the war in Ukraine disrupted its buying process. The conflict reportedly pushed the annual expenditure of African countries on wheat imports to $20 billion. Typically, the country buys less than 1 million tons at a time and does not disclose the intended purchase amount. However, for the tender process, the intended purchase amounts and terms are usually publicly disclosed to invite competitive bids, which results in a longer than usual delivery period. Egypt, one of the world's top wheat buyers, is closely monitored by traders as its purchases often indicate market trends. The USDA projects the country's total wheat imports for 2024 to 2025 to reach 12 million tons. On Tuesday, wheat futures in Chicago traded higher but remained near a 4-year low as abundant U.S. crops continue to keep the market well supplied. In our next story, Cabinet has directed that no public institution or individual can lease, transfer, or change the use of public lands without written permission from the President to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. They are also not allowed to sublet, assign, dispose of, or otherwise create any third-party interest in any public land granted or allocated to that public institution, public body, or public corporation. Now, such public land covered by the directive includes lands that have been granted to public institutions for public purposes, whether by way of freehold, leasehold, or any form of grant. The directive is contained in a statement issued by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel A. Jinpo, in Accra yesterday to announce the government's latest move to regulate the transfer of public lands. That concludes our economic news. Let's take a look at our financial indicators before we return with the sports news with Ari Hogat.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with Olympic Games that continue in Paris. That's the 2024 Olympic Games and it will finish this coming weekend. Let's go first to skateboarding. It's a women's skateboarding event and a great achievement by Australian Arisa Thew, and she became the youngest medal winner at the 2024 Olympic Games. She's just 14 years old and she won gold in the women's skateboarding. In second position was Japan's Kokoyo Kiraki, and in the third position was from Great Britain. It was Sky Brown. She's also very young. She's just 16-year-old, and so it was great achievement by the 14-year-old Arisa Thew of Australia, winning gold in the skateboarding for women. Moving on to the athletics track, and it is Gabrielle Thomas that won the 200 meters, and that was in the time of 21.83, the 200 meters for women. And in second position was Julian Alfred of St. Lucia. She won the 100 meters earlier, but she was second, and third was Brittany Brown of the United States. Going over to the 1500, the 1500 meter for men, it was Cole Hocker that won the title. He came in 3 minutes 27 seconds 0.65, and he beat Josh Kerr of Great Britain into second position. In the 3000 meter steeplechase for women, it was Winfred Yari that won in 8 minutes and 52 seconds, and it was Ugandan Peruth Shemutai that was in the second position. She got a silver medal, 3000 meter steeplechase. Let's go on to the soccer field. Two big semi-finals that was played in women's soccer, and it was first the USA that had to go into extra time to beat Germany by 1-0, and it was Sophie Smith that scored in extra time, so the United States through to the final. They will meet Brazil in the final. Comprehensive win for Brazil. They beat Spain by 3-0, so the final of the women's soccer will be played between the United States of America and Brazil. We continue international sports news with tennis news. The tennis is done at the Olympic Games now. It's the National Bank Open in Montreal. Most of the best players in the world, men and women, play in this tournament. On the men's side of the draw, it will be number 1 seed will be Yannick Sinner. He was injured at the Olympics, but he's number 1 seed in this tournament. Number 2 seed Alexander Zverev, and the 3rd seed is Daniil Medvedev. On the women's side of the draw, it is Coco Gauff that will be the number 1 seed, and it is Aryna Sabalenka. She's the Australian Open winner this year. She's number 2 seed with Jessica Pegula of United States. She's the 3rd seed in that is the National Bank Open in Montreal. To close off today's international sports news, it is soccer news from the English Premier League. It's from Norwich City. They confirmed that they've signed defender Caleb Doyle from Manchester City that is on loan for the rest of the season. The English Premier League will start on the 16th of August. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
If you're just joining us, worry not, here are the highlights. Get married for love, not citizenship. Marrying a foreign national for money is a crime, says Nzuza from South Africa. US to give $414 million in humanitarian aid for Congo. Egypt seizes opportunity to buy large wheat stockpile as global prices drop. And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for tuning in and watching Africa Good Morning on this beautiful Thursday morning. From me, Glenora Shipora. Until next time.